Hi muckers and welcome to the new Chronically Online podcast. Before we get in, I have a really exciting announcement, which is I am going on tour in February, and if there are any muckers in Brooklyn, Chicago, Seattle, LA, Dallas, I will be there in February. It is also called the Chronically Online Tour. I'm so excited. It is going to be the most deranged night of your entire life. Tickets are available down below. I will see you all hopefully in February. Again, that is Brooklyn, Chicago, Seattle, LA, and Dallas. I hope you enjoy the podcast. And again, they both have same names, Chronically Online Podcast and the Chronically Online Tour. I'm super excited. So hopefully see you in February. Tickets are available down below. Hi muckers, welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome back to the Chronically Online Podcast. And out of all of the ones that I've filmed so far, this is definitely the weirdest one because I feel like there is a switch gone on here. I'm joined by Swoop today.
Hi.
First of all, the only ever experience I have of talking to you is you're in this seat and
Yes.
I'm in that one.
Yeah.
Please bear with me because I'm so nervous right now.
I love that because I am just as nervous because again, I'm used to interviewing you. And so this is so weird. I just don't talk about myself. So this is very strange.
So first of all, I guess we may as well dive into our experience with each other and our history. So we met one time before and it was, dare I say, a month ago at this stage?
Somewhere around there? Yeah.
I was in LA I was just coming out with my mom and I had ultimately reached out to you to see if you wanted to meet up, and I had reached out to, or I think Josh had reached out to me and then I had reached out to you two, whatever it was.
Whatever, yeah.
And we all met up at my Airbnb and I think we all kind of mutually agreed we were going to sit and talk for maybe 30 minutes, an hour or something. I was flying to Vegas the next day because me and my mom were going to Mariah Carey and we were like, all right, well, I think everyone was meeting at 6 p.m. or something. I was like, we'll be done by 7:30 or something.
Right.
Tell me why we look at the time and it's literally 11:30 and our flight is in 3
No,
hours.
you were like, I got to go pack now because I'm catching a flight in a few minutes. I was like, what? Okay.
I don't really meet creators anymore. And I feel like you have been such a significant creator in my life that it felt even more intense meeting you. And obviously it went very well. You're sitting here today. There was nothing that went bad. But I do have one kind of overall question that we haven't even spoken about, off camera. My mom was there.
Yes.
And my mom is obviously involved in my online stuff to a degree, kind of from a sidelines. She wants to be more involved. And I'm like, I don't want you to be at the mercy of a comment section, Mom. Please stand back a little bit.
Yeah.
From covering the Colleen story, and obviously you'd asked me questions about my mom and her opinion of it. What was it like for you kind of covering that entire thing, but also having my mom there? I didn't think she was going to sit in the entire time, but ultimately I feel like she had a lot to add and also had a lot of questions as well. What was it like having her there? I always really was so curious on that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole experience was surreal. Obviously, I had met Josh from my interview with him, but meeting you in person was just so wild after all of this, just everything that the whole project, everything you had been through. And so meeting your mom was a really lovely experience. Your mom is she just has such a gentle demeanor about her, but firm as well, if that makes sense.
That's going to be her new Twitter bio. My God.
Very demure, very mindful.
I think that was again, I cannot stress how surreal that was.
Yeah.
It felt so surreal. What's your do you meet many creators these days, or do you kind of film or talk from a distance?
Yeah, I don't. I mean, I meet creators when I go to events. There's a lot of events in the area. I have creator friends that I had, long friendships with long before I was even doing the type of content that I'm doing now. So, but I don't take a lot of time to go meet a lot of creators. Just number one, I kind of live in my own bubble and in a cave a lot of times. I'm working all the time. And so really when I meet creators, if it's someone I'm interviewing for a piece, it's specifically just for that subject.
Yeah.
And that's kind of it. We'll have that interaction and then wish you well. And we're going back to our lives outside of the content. And so, yeah, I don't really meet a lot of people too much. I'm more of a keep to myself.
Well, I wonder what your opinion is of this, because I struggle with dynamics when it comes to creators. And I also am in this in between where I don't want to be friends with creators. And it's kind of, if I'm filming with them or there is a level of, I mean, we've touched on this privately, it's a really weird thing because there's a level of professionalism, business that comes to meeting creators or filming with creators. And obviously I've struggled with the concept of what is friends and what isn't in the past with creators, that I feel like I have a shield up anyway. I don't know about you, so I'd like to hear your perception on this as well. When you film with people, do you separate that and get to know them in terms of like a friendly basis? Because for me, I have to keep it separate. Otherwise, I really do struggle to understand boundaries.
Right. Yeah. I think, you know, when I was doing content that wasn't in this like commentary documentary space, it was a little easier, you know, like if I did like a hair video with someone, then like I'll keep in touch with, you know, whoever that was in that video. Cause it's just lighter, you know, more friend content, you know, back kind of more in the older days, I guess, a few years ago when collabs were more like that. But now, again, if someone's in one of my videos or if I'm speaking to them, it's because it's usually a pretty heavy topic. They're trying to bring something to light. And I don't feel like it is the most appropriate thing to then just like be hanging out. This hasn't been something that I've done. Again, the boundaries thing, right? Like I don't want to cross those. And then of course, especially with the stories that we cover, like I don't want people to think, oh, there was some friendship. If there was a friendship after the fact, then people start speculating, oh, maybe they were friends before and maybe that, you know, gave some bias in like, you know, what she was talking about. And it's like, no, you know, I just like to keep things a little more clean and let people live their lives, and what they do, you know, beyond an interview is what they do, and vice versa. So I get where you're coming from. Well, for sure.
For me, I've loved asking people this, and I think you're probably the most intense person to ask on this because of this style of content you make. What is your relationship whenever it comes to being at the hands of a comment section and people's perceptions? Because I think I've had to let it go because I think I've struggled with, people may know your intentions, but if it doesn't fit the mold in which they currently think of you, they will find a way.
Yes.
They will find a way.
Yes.
Has it changed, because you've been making content for a while, how you react, even just like personally, to people speculating on intentions or, you know, the reasons you're doing things, specifically because you're making content that exposes a lot of things. And I think that goes into not having close one-on-one dynamics. If you're hanging out at a bar with someone, then they're like, oh, so now you love this person, they're going to do no wrong.
Right.
Has it changed from doing this for a while, and specifically the content, that, like, what is your perception when it comes to people speculating? Are you able to separate it and have your own standing, or does it still get to you?
I mean, you know, I'm human like anyone else. And so it gets to me sometimes, not all of it at this point. I've been through enough things and seen enough comments that are just so wildly out of touch with who I am, what the content was saying, what the receipts were proving. And it's funny, it's like, you know, this was a question that I would have asked you, because like I see you and like you have this way, at least from my perspective, you have this way of like clapping back on stuff like in the instant, like something happens. I'm not saying you do that all the time, but like
I'd say I do that all the time.
Okay, I was trying to give you an out there. No, but I just feel like, you know, the times that you've done it, it's been appropriate, and it's been to the appropriate degree, and it's not beyond that. And I think that is a good thing. And to where I'm like, you know, I would talk to like, you know, my friends and be like, I need to ask Adam, like, how do I enter my clapback era? Because I'm so not that person in a lot of ways. I'm very much like, I hate misinformation. I hate disinformation, of course. I have certainly seen that spread, you know, about me, about stories that we've, you know, I've seen it about you, like, and that does really bother me. But I also, there was something that this creator I follow, Jackie Aina, she's a beauty creator and a businesswoman, and I admire a lot of what she has done with her voice and her platform. And she said this thing not that long ago where she was like, I don't have to attend every argument that I'm invited to.
Oh, that's so good.
Right? And I was just like...
Unfortunately, I do have to attend all of them, but that's really, I love that.
No, it just spoke so much to me, and how I've just been kind of operating, even though, yes, there have been times where I have seen things said about me, and it's like, that is so flat out wrong. And it's so easy to verify that it's wrong if anyone wanted to check a fact.
Yeah.
But that's just not the day and age that we always live in with the internet. I think the vast majority of people online are like, they're interested in the truth and the honesty and all of that. And they have an open mind. But yeah, there are plenty of people come at stuff with bad faith. And so I'll see things that are just not true. And it's like, you can easily verify this, but again, it's kind of that idea of like, I don't have to attend that argument just because I was invited.
God, I love that. I'm going to be using that again. I do love a party, and regardless of what it is, I think I'm showing up. I think I've had to let go as well in terms of, I mean, we are in the age where, this has been a common conversation I've been having with people. We are in the age of like snarking at its highest. Comment sections are at their most brutal. Like social medias are allowing more stuff than they've ever allowed in terms of comment sections and like the ability to kind of harshly come at someone. I think I've personally realized that there are things that I want to respond to. And then there's things that I'm like, if I respond to this, it doesn't put an end to it because people will continue to speculate on it or whatever. So I think it honestly just boils down to the person and like your personal boundaries with it.
Yeah. There's been some times where it was like, I've looked back on having not said anything or not clarified. And at the time, I'm very much a person, and I say this often in my content, like, if I don't speak on something and if people are like, speculating or they want me to say something or what do you think about whatever, if I don't speak about something, it's always for a very good reason. And there have been some things that were said, and it's like, looking back now, I kind of, I don't want to call them regrets, but I have these moments where it's like, I kind of wish that I had just cracked down and like given like, I don't know, like a bullet point list of like, here's actually what is going on, behind the scenes that no one knows about because you're not behind the scenes with me. Like you have things behind the scenes that and like you've lived, but people will speculate and they have no clue. And so there's been times where I'm like, sometimes I wish I would have just been like, no, actually, boom, 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 done. And I didn't do that because I thought, well, let me be quiet about things because it's for someone else's protection. And so I have to take that into consideration a lot. There's a lot of like victims and alleged victims that we have that I've interviewed or have given me statements in the past where they want to be anonymous. And so it becomes a thing also I have to weigh if I crack down on some things that some people are getting wrong just because it's, maybe they just wanted, I don't know, they're looking for a reason to be mad about something, then it could make this other person vulnerable and it could expose them when, I promise to them that we keep them anonymous, and they're very brave to come forward with something. And so, has it like hurt sometimes? Sure, absolutely. I'm human, but just trying to like do the best I can to navigate this. And for me, it's just, I just get a little more quiet and a little more private with myself and, whereas you clap back and I wish I could do that.
I was about to say, I think we have two very different approaches for it. And there's a factor of reasons that come into that for both of us and why we both act or carry ourselves in a certain type of way. I think for me, I just have an attitude of like, I feel like I went through a lot of years where a lot was speculated. And I feel I went through a lot of years where a lot of people had a built-in opinion of me because of things that I didn't clap back on.
Right.
And I think I have this thing now where things have a tendency to kind of lie on me. And honestly, just for myself, if I don't immediately like kind of hit back with, if I have something to prove or if I just have an opinion to share, there's no stopping me whenever it comes to that goddamn keyboard or when that camera starts hitting record, like, it's their problem. I do have a question for you. So when did you make the shift and why did you make the shift into making more so the documentary style content? Because you were speaking about more so like collabs in the past.
Right.
When was that shift and why was that shift?
Yeah. So some people know this about me. Some people don't. Just depends on when they've discovered me or my content. I had an old channel, right? And so that old channel was in beauty and fashion. And it wasn't actually even a channel that I started. This fashion company had created the channel long before I came around. And then I was doing some modeling with them. And so then I kind of did a bunch of fashion content for them. And then eventually it became my channel and the company phased out. And, making that content was, you know, it wasn't necessarily speaking to my core of who I am as a creative. Not that, you know, no shade on like people doing beauty content. I think it's great, but it just wasn't really, I never really fit in, to say the least. And then after doing that channel on my own for a few years, I had what YouTube referred to as an algorithmic anomaly.
Okay.
So basically that channel had like 650,000 subscribers or something at the time. And one day I uploaded and it like everything just like flatlined instantly. The video got like 500 views or 1,000 views.
What year was this?
Oh my gosh, this was probably 2016.
Did that have any correlation to like Adpocalypse, or was that before that?
It was like around a similar time. I don't remember the exact timeline of that and where that fell in, but I do remember that became a question that I had. And so I spent like the better part of a year or a year and a half trying to figure out what the heck happened to my channel, because, you know, that's all that I had. That was my platform. And it was just like this random chance event that I was at, where I met someone from the search and discovery team, a Google person. And they worked like on the algorithm and all that type of stuff. So I asked them, I was like, this is what happened to my channel. I don't understand what's going on. And they pulled up a little laptop. They had like all these diagnostic tools that we don't get to see. And I didn't tell them what happened. I was just like, well, let's hear what you have to say. And they told me, he like made this like grimacing face and was like, you got screwed. And I was like,
he went, it's not good, babe.
No, I was like, ugh. And I was like, what does that mean? And he basically said it was like the equivalent of being struck by lightning, that it was this algorithmic anomaly. That's like the phrase I was given.
That's so scary.
And I'm just like, I don't know what any of this means, but it was like, yeah, if your analytics depress you, you should just start over. And I was like, cool.
Well, what's really crazy on that, before you continue, just to kind of add on that point, I was talking to someone recently who told me that it's a thing that if a channel is above a certain age, YouTube say that you should start a new channel because it is seen as too old when it comes to YouTube.
Yeah, I've heard speculation about that. Again, like there's only, it's speculation, right? And I don't even think like if that is something that happens to certain channels, I don't even know that it happens across the board or not. But it's certainly something, this anomaly happened to me. And so I was like at this point where I was like, well, I could either keep pumping my time and energy into like trying to revive this channel that's clearly dead, or I could just start over. And when I started over, I was like, I don't want to do that style of content anymore. But you know, it's kind of funny when I look back at my channel Swoop, and when I created Swoop and I look back at the content over the last few years, I can literally see myself growing and like experiencing different types of growing pains, trying to figure out who I am and what exactly speaks to me. Like I knew in my core, think music is a huge part of my life, and film. I was directing like music videos at the time. And so that was really important to me. But I was just trying different things to find myself. And so when I would still do like a hybrid beauty thing, I would also make a film baked into it. And then people are like, this is weird. What are you doing? We just want the beauty. And
this
it's like,
cross-genre beauty video.
It's like, what's happening? I did like a Mad Max thing at some point. It's like, and it was just like, okay, I don't, you know. And so then I got into like cinema vlogging, and where that was more of me wanting to tell stories. That was, you know, being a storyteller has always been important to me. It started with songwriting, and it came into the content. And so, you know, I just was pivoting, tweaking, figuring myself out. And then eventually I made a short film, Lost in Darkness. And that was, you know, when I was at the height of like the worst mental health crisis that I had ever been in. And I couldn't make any content. So I was like, the only thing I can do is just film what I'm feeling right now. And so I made that film, and it was a difficult process to say the least. And then I was invited to Buffer Festival, this like great film festival for creators, and it wound up winning the cinematography award. And I was like, it was such an overwhelming experience. And then so many people, I got to meet so many people at the festival who were sharing what the film meant to them, which was so touching to me. And that really opened my eyes to like, I just want to tell stories that hopefully help somebody, that might move someone in some type of way. And so then, you know, I did some more cinema vlogs, but then I did another film, Unspoken, and then I did another film in 2020 called Worthy, when that was when the protests were happening. And that was my first real dig into talking about injustices that are happening to vulnerable communities. And it was kind of like there's no going back after that.
I mean, you didn't dip your toe in the pool. You jumped in the pool.
Yeah. Well, I think like, you know, it's funny. I was thinking about this. I did like 2 or 3 videos on the Dead channel. It was called Tea with Spanky. I'm just drinking tea.
Love.
And I was sharing my opinion.
Ahead of your time.
I was sharing my opinions. I really enjoyed it, but then I strayed away from it because I got back, you know, I get in my head all the time about everything. And so I was in my head and I was like, no, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. What am I going to say? But yeah, you know, it just kind of was a full circle thing, and that's my long-winded answer of how
I loved it.
I got here.
I had posted on my Finsta that I have, and I've been doing this before I film with everyone, and I'm like, is there anything that like people really want me to ask? And there were 2 things. One of them we're going to get to later, which is music and touring. And the others was, there were so many people. I feel like there is, obviously not completely because we have both very different audiences, but I feel like there is at least some crossover. And I knew that there was because people were kind of opening up about, when you've been opening up recently about mental health and you've been opening up about health struggles, and people were saying how rare it is for one of their favorite creators to open up about stuff like that. And you were talking about mental health there when it came to creating, you know, different content and switching and stuff. How is it, first of all, how are you doing? And then number 2, how has it been opening up about things? And was that always a conscious thing, or was it just kind of like, I need to put this out so people know where I'm at?
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking.
Of course.
It's very sweet. You know, it's not easy for sure. It wasn't, you know, the film Lost in Darkness was like, I just have to. Like, it wasn't even something that I was thinking about or like planning. It just was the only thing that I could do. In that time, I felt like this is the only thing I can do to stay alive. I needed a reason to keep breathing. Yeah. And for me, it was creating something. But I couldn't create the stuff that didn't speak to me anymore. And I was so broken. I was like, if I don't distract myself with creating something and just express this thing that I don't understand. I don't understand all these feelings that are going on. I just know that I'm on the verge of not wanting to be here anymore. And so that was what birthed that film. And as I've been doing the work that I do now, you know, the last couple of years, the docu, the commentary, I've started expressing little pieces of me. Those pieces happen to be very vulnerable pieces to where, you know, people might be like, oh, she's like oversharing or whatever, or it's cringe or whatever. And it's like, I can't even pay mind to that. I've found that just expressing, even if it's, you know, just little blips of time of my life with my mental health, that it has encouraged people who are watching to express some of their own and makes them feel maybe a little empowered. And, you know, I get so many messages from people who are just like, say thank you. And it's like, at the same time, it's like, I have to say thank you to all of them for even being here to listen. And in a way, covering the stories that I do has really helped me understand more about stuff that I went through, just because, you know, I spend so much time researching, you know, things like grooming, and I don't know if I need to like censor words.
Oh no, please. It's my channel. I put everything on here.
Okay. I've spent so much time researching like the psychological effects of like sexual assault. And, you know, I was groomed and I was assaulted as a child and, you know, in the entertainment industry as an adult. And it just became a place where I've been through these things. I've carried it my whole life and didn't ever talk about it. And why would I not just start talking about it? And that's what I did. And people responded in a way that was so supportive.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, at this point, it's like I really just share it to like remind people that it's okay to talk about these things, and like chronic illness and all of that stuff. You know, I posted, I think maybe what you may have referenced or something, or what they were referencing. I had posted a couple of months ago that I was assaulted. Yeah. I was physically assaulted again, and it was a mess of emotions. Thinking like, you know, there was a lot of shame of feeling like I've been so researched and I should know, you know, what the warning signs are, and like I should have seen it coming, even though how could I? They, you know, came from behind, and it's like, I don't know. I reached another point of like, if I'm feeling all of this, even after all of the experience I've had talking to victims, encouraging victims, encouraging survivors, even if I'm sitting here having all of these experiences and like this stress and this shame once again over this, then, and I'm not talking about it, how is that helping anyone? How is that helping myself? How is that helping my audience? And so, you know, I shared, you know, kind of in a post about what had been going on. I had not shared for, you know, better part of a year what I was going through with my physical health and stuff, and all the doctors, all the tests, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, again, I just want to try to be one little piece of the internet that destigmatizes talking about these things and letting people know that it's okay to talk about it.
I think as well, what's really fascinating, what I find really fascinating about you is, personally speaking, and again, I don't want to say selfishly because everyone has different boundaries when it comes to it, so I don't want to like talk myself down here, but it has been a thing where it has been more challenging to cover certain topics because I like can personally identify, or they, you know, kind of hit harder.
Right.
And I think it's really interesting that the type of content that you make is so heavy, and there are parts that you can so personally identify with. And I think as well, we have spoken both on and off the record about the fact that when you've been working on docs, like not only are they heavy, but you are speaking to people one-on-one. Like it is not just content. And this was something that I remember whenever I made videos on you like last summer, and I was saying what really deeply frustrated me was that I felt that people so misunderstood intentions that you had in making content. For example, specifically like with the Colleen one, being so personally involved, I knew a lot of what you were dealing with behind the scenes because, you know, I needed to give you heads up on things, or you needed to give me heads up on things. And there was so much going on. And then you would go online, or I would go online, and it is people being like, I thought the video was coming out today. And what people don't realize as well is it's not a case of even just simply researching, which is broad within itself, interviewing people, so goddamn broad, follow-ups, creating the content, editing the content, you know, re-looking at the content. And that what so deeply frustrated me. And I went so protective of you during that time. And I think I would have, if I had known you and it wasn't even to do with something that I was involved with, because I feel that people can so look at something so one-dimensional of its content. But I can personally say that the shit that goes on behind the scenes in these things, if there's one thing that you think is completely misunderstood about the entire process from a public like standpoint, what would it be? Because for me, I truly do believe that people just look at it in such a simplified way. And again, that's so frustrated me because you would, you know, say that the video would come out on a Tuesday. And I can confirm that you had every intentions of posting it on a Tuesday, and then things would happen. And if you were to have put, and this is what really frustrates me, if you had, regardless of what documentary it was, posted on a Tuesday, and then on a Wednesday, new information comes out, you would be held to the standard that, oh, well, you just posted this video and it's completely inaccurate. So what is, in your opinion, the biggest misunderstanding from an audience standpoint from whenever you start and publish one of these documentary deep dives?
I think, you know, the main thing, the way my brain works is, and this has been the way it is my entire life, I don't rush. And sometimes that's been to my detriment. You know, sometimes I've taken so much time to make a decision about something that, you know, an opportunity passes by or something. But with stories like this, especially this particular story, there was so much noise going on. There were so many elements from the internet all weighing in opinions and things like that. And we're dealing with so many different potential victims, actual victims, and checking facts is like really important to me, and as best to my ability. Sometimes, you know, things like you said will fall through the cracks and then you discover something after you post. But I was not in a hurry because I didn't think that these stories, like your story, I don't think rushing it was the right care to give to it. And I understand that there are people who make content, you know, within a couple of hours or a couple of days, and that's, you know, their style. That's just never been my style. And so when I do pieces that have interviews, it's scheduling the interviews takes time and then conducting the interview. But it's not just conducting. There's a lot of prep, a lot of research, and then fact checking the research to make sure I don't bring you inaccurate questions. And then we go through all of the interview footage and fact check everything. And sometimes we do that twice. And then we want to get cross references. Is there anything to corroborate whatever this, you know, story is? All of that takes a lot of time. And I think it would be irresponsible of me to rush that. And I also know that the public and information moves in very strange ways when it's rapidly updating. And I would rather be able to collect as much information as possible, compare it to, you know, every component, and have something that is as clear and accurate as possible versus getting pieces out very quickly. And I think another thing that people, for whatever reason, and when I say people, a small percentage, right? In the grand scheme, most people were lovely. But yeah, seeing people get all angry about how long it was taking. This was also at a time when I was dealing with a lot of doctors and a lot of stuff. There were times when I couldn't feel parts of my hands, parts of my arms, because I'm on, MS protocol, watch and all these types of things that people didn't know about. And I didn't want to talk about that stuff. And then it's also well, if I had shared that, then they'd be like, oh, she's making up excuses or whatever, whatever people want to just run with. There's just always a lot more. There's a lot more. I just wish people would really think about that. If they're wanting it to be rushed, is why does it have to be rushed? Wouldn't it be better to be a little more detailed?
I think as well, at a certain stage, you cannot have the same standards for a drama commentary channel,
right?
Who their full thing is, if I make content fast and I get something wrong, I get up the correction fast.
Right, yeah.
We are making two very different subgenres of content within one genre. Right, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's completely different. And that was something that just so deeply frustrated me. And I made so many videos last year being like, everyone shut the fuck up. Stop. Because you're going to push a creator, regardless of who it is, to try to think that they should rush something. And that's not the case in any, not for things like this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't think people stop to realize, again, with one of the interviews, it was 6 hours plus an hour and a half of additional audio recorded information that we had received. That takes a long time to fact check. It just does. We spent the better part of 3.5, 4 months on the whole series. And that was the only content that we were able to do because it was full-time. I was not sleeping most of the time. I had to cancel events. I had to cancel a vacation. There were all these things that people didn't know about that were going on. And it's I didn't want to sacrifice all of that, but we did because that was the I felt the right thing to do, to tell the story as accurately as possible. Just things take longer than people assume.
So you had said we, and I love talking about your team because I think they're brilliant. You said how many people are on this again?
3.
Which is just so crazy because from the amount of work that you were able to do, and it was a short period of time.
Yes.
It was a short period of time, was just incredible. Like, it was incredible. And so when did you really start forming with the team? Were they originally with you in the beauty channel, or was that? No. I was about to say they were like holding the products up. Was that obviously like a Swoop?
Yeah. That was only when I started building and started working with people. That was within, I want to say, not even 6 months before that series.
Oh, wow.
I think if I'm getting my timelines correct, it may have even been a little bit less time. Again, if I'm getting my timelines correct. Yeah. It was like very new.
Damn, they were thrown into the thick of it.
I mean, it was, thrown to the wolves very quickly. I mean, none of us could have seen the twists and turns, right? But certainly you couldn't have, you weren't even asking for this. So let's not forget that. But yeah, no, there was one person who, I mean, is literally working a full-time job for another company, who has been around just like assisting with like, setup and stuff, like, oh, need a little help setting up for, a shot or something. And so that person has been around like off and on a little bit. And then I brought in someone else who had just a great background in research and journalism, and added like a great, not just helped make sure my perspectives were like, I'm seeing things correctly, but also to be able to operate in a way that just held a certain, like, maybe, I don't know how to phrase this. We developed a certain standard for how we wanted to do things. And that was important to us. And it's not the same standard as somebody else. And that's fine. But yeah, it was just the 3 of us, like, grinding away. It took, that series in particular took such a toll on all of us. One of my team members had like a really, really challenging time mentally, like on the end of it, to where it was like, we all need to just take a break. I certainly had a very, there were some very dark times that came through that. And it's just, sometimes it's the nature of it, but I don't want it to be that way. And I'm also very protective of people who work with me. So it's like, we're stopping. Like this is, it becomes too much sometimes. But they were incredible through the whole thing. And I'm so grateful for, their dedication as well. Like they very much just wanted to see the truth come out, even if it was hard, even if it was tough to present, even if it was a bit shocking at times. They just really wanted to do what was right. Yeah.
I think one thing I also want to clarify, just from like an audience point of view, and I'm going to break the fourth wall here to speak. There was a lot of people had questions in terms of our dynamic before the Colleen doc, right? Like, a lot of people wondered like where we had encountered each other before. I want to like put it on the record and stuff that we had no perception of each other before this. We had no interactions before this. When you had been in stuff before, I had not even covered the topic. So like we genuinely had zero perceptions of each other. So I just want to like completely like break the fourth wall and say that. And also one thing I want to clarify that I think is important, that I think only I can really say this and double down on it, is every interaction that I had with you and your team, I need to clarify, it was professional. It was not a case of babying me. It wasn't a case of favoring me. I mean, I was asked for a lot of proof. I was asked for things because it's important for cross-referencing. And I also just think it's important to like let the audience know as well that we had no interactions before this, and the interactions that we had during it were very, very, very professional. And the way that the doc obviously went in the grand scheme of things was because people were being dishonest at places and stuff like that. And you would only know that when everyone was being treated the same.
Right.
Everyone was being asked for the same things.
Yeah.
And it's never something we've both talked about, but I just want to clarify that was like 100% a thing. And I don't even, when did you start covering that?
I think it was in June.
Okay.
Sometime in June, I think part 1 came out.
When did you or your team reach out to me? Like, I cannot remember that at all.
I think the very first
interaction.
Yeah, understandably. Congratulations for making it through. Okay, all the flowers. Well deserved and earned. I think, if I remember correctly, I think my very first interaction with you was a public tweet.
Yes, you said you would love to talk.
Yeah,
that's
something
what it was.
like, okay, it's time. I'm gonna cover this,
that's what it was.
And would love to talk to you. And I tagged you in the tweet.
And it was like, Colleen Ballinger, it's time. Would like to talk or something.
Yeah, I think I said something like cringe, like I Swoop has entered the chat. Oh,
and people loved it. People loved it.
And so that was our very first interaction, was me tweeting, and then I don't remember if you DM'd or I DM'd or
it was something, and then
something like that.
We did. How many interviews did we do?
We did,
because we would do calls on what's it called, on the record.
Yeah.
Where as well, like, if people don't know, I assume most people do, but it's literally like a call that is basically like an interview in a sense. Like, everything can be said publicly, and you're asked questions and stuff. We had one major one of those, and then we had an interview whenever I was in Paris, and then was that all that we did?
Yeah, so we did the first interview was the Zoom interview, and that was early. That was before
we did 2.
Yeah, we did 2.
Yeah, there was one when I was in Brighton, and then there was one when I was in the worst fucking hotel Wi-Fi. Yeah, sorry about that.
And I still feel so bad that I just like what happened and all.
It needed to. And again, I brought this up when I saw you like a month ago when I met you for the first time, because my mom was there and she was obviously on that Paris trip. And I think I've honed in online on talking about like, oh my God, it was so stressful. Like, the Johnny thing had just broken whenever I was in Paris with my family. And obviously I did the interview with you that night. And I feel like the way that I'm telling it, people have they don't understand my true intentions in the way I was saying it. It needed to happen. Like, regardless of where I was, if I was in Brighton, I was in Paris or whatever, it was so important for me personally to know what Johnny was doing. Yeah. And also it was a case of like, do I want to be involved and give my opinion on this, or would I? By the way, Swoop also gave me the option to literally just put something on the record. So I also want to clarify that as well. It was a mutual decision to do that interview. And I think whenever I've told that Paris story, I think I've like honed in on like making a joke in terms of, Paris, and I was having like a breakdown and stuff. But I also do want to clarify that while that is true, it was so important for that to happen. And also my parents were like, you need to do this right now. I think this is very important. You need to hear this information. And ultimately, that is something that I will always be so grateful that you decided to include me in that process, because a lot of people would have blindsided me until the last moment. And that, I feel like that would have been fucking harder.
Yeah, no, I couldn't even imagine. Like, that wasn't even a thought. That, like, once we discovered, once we started putting these pieces together and we saw things like he was doctoring evidence and just the lies that were being told and the exaggerations, there was no world where I was not going to contact you first, because you were so directly impacted. And there were so many elements of like the stuff that Johnny was talking about that were like essentially taking your story, right? And it's like,
he went, I like that one. I'm going to tweak it a little bit, but I like this. I'm going to tweak it and make it more intense.
No, not victim shopping. I'll take this off the aisle and this. Jokes aside or whatever, but like, it's just that you were so directly impacted. And it's like, how am I not going to speak to someone who has, in our opinion, been victimized by not just Colleen, but now what this grown man was doing? And so at the very least, I needed to have a conversation with you. We were so grateful that you were open and came on and did a second interview. I think that was really important to just underscore that this actually is really serious, what's going on, and it actually is quite dangerous, at least in our opinion. He was, leveling these just monumental accusations that are so very damaging. And you had been through so much already. It was like,
did you, I think I also got this a lot where people were like, you need to ask Swoop this. And I was like, will do, muckers. When you realized that a lot of the screenshots didn't link up and stuff, and ultimately you realized that like questions weren't getting answered, and that, heaven forbid, that long ass interview, which is so funny because I think if you put both of our interviews together, it wouldn't even level that amount of time. I feel like you would ask me a question, but again, I didn't have to like circle around anything or whatever. It was literally like at a certain stage, it was like, let me answer this and then we'll both go with our day, right?
Right.
When you and your team ultimately realized that so many things were not even just fabrications, but just like, where the fuck is this coming from?
Right.
What was that perception? Because that's still something that I struggle with the most in this, because I also have said this to you on and off the record, and I'll say it 100 times and more. If it was not for you, this would have gone a completely different way. I believe within myself that if you had not stepped in, and you were the only one willing to do the work for this, you and your team were really the only ones. I didn't want to. I would talk about it if people wanted, you know, that was kind of my limit. I wasn't going to deep dive this. I wasn't going to whatever. And you came in at such a perfect time for the story. Obviously, not in terms of your mental health, your team's mental health. It was the detriment to like everyone. It was fucking heavy. Right. But I believe that if you had not uncovered this, I think that he would have continued to have, you know, wound up these stories.
Yes.
And I think inevitably he would have had tried to expose me.
I think, that was a concern that we had. Absolutely. We're like, this guy, after everything that we had seen. And again, we were shocked by stuff. We were shocked to see the doctored evidence, the deleted messages, all that kind of stuff. And so as we start putting the pieces together, fact checking, comparing everything that we had found, it was like, again, this situation feels quite dangerous. Like it could escalate to really harmful degrees beyond what it already has. Yeah. And so we had that concern of like, what if he starts targeting you? If things don't go exactly whatever way he thought
that's what
things
I'm saying,
were
whatever
gonna
way
go,
that was.
I don't, to this day, I still can't wrap my head around why. Other than, you know, him telling you like, you know, you want to grow a following and like, you know, get a platform and like, and that's just it just is such a troubling thing to see that. But, you know, I think about a lot, like what would it have meant if we didn't put that piece out? Yeah. What would it have meant to you if we didn't do that? You know, I see people, you know, every now and then there'll be someone pop up on Twitter or something, and they'll be like upset that we, you know, and like wanting to defend Johnny and what he did. And it's like, don't even like come to me. It's like, what would it have meant to the people that were directly impacted by what he was doing?
I have no idea what he would. And you know what's like crazy about it is it was starting to go that way. And I remember, and I don't know if you remember this, but when you'd called me before we did the interview in Paris, like you had called me right before to like let me know, and we're like, can you do the interview? And I was like, yeah. You were like, I need to tell you something. And you went to say it. And I finished your sentence about Johnny. I said, is it about Johnny? Yeah. And before you said anything, I said, here's my opinion on him. And I was never going to put that on you because at that stage, I was making videos where I started to distance myself from Johnny. And I was getting backlash for being like, wow, you're not highlighting another, you know, victim. Like you want to be the almighty. And I was getting that for so long. Right. And so whenever I told you that and you told me everything, my mama came up and I was like this. And I literally went like that to her because she was thinking it was the same thing. Yeah. I think that inevitably, give it even 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, I think the story would have turned that people would have been like, Adam is trying to be the ultimate one. Right. Because he was continuing with the stories and stuff. And I also believe that maybe it would have ended in a lawsuit for all of us because he was throwing out huge accusations that I guess we were all like, okay, but we couldn't question it because we were not doing the journalistic deep dive. We were taking someone at their word. And I think it would have dragged us all fucking down into a lawsuit. And still to this day, people will say, did I get a cease and desist? Did I get a lawsuit? Whatever. I never got anything from Andrew Brettler, Colleen's.
I got legal things.
You did?
This is something nobody knows.
You got?
Well, And like to say one thing really quick, and then I'll come to that. I think that there are some people who also forget, and I get it. The piece that we did, like on Johnny specifically, it's long. It's nearly 4 hours.
Yeah.
There's a lot of information that we had to cover, and I think some people have forgotten that I called Johnny and presented things to him and gave him a chance in private to tell me what the hell's going on and to take ownership for what he was doing. You know, the group chats of him and all of that just dark stuff, that all of those like very dark group chat things that were going on with alcohol and sexual conversations. It was very dark stuff. And I gave him the opportunity on the phone. This was off the record because I was like, you can do the right thing with your platform. And I was like, you know, what do you say about all this? And he's like, yeah, it was wrong. It was inappropriate. But he was just essentially like, I'm just weighing my options because if I talk about it publicly, it's going to bring more attention to it. And I'm like, this is what you have been blasting people and making false allegations and blasting them to address it. But when there's actual evidence of you doing things, I'm giving you an opportunity before we come out with anything. I'm giving you the opportunity to set the record straight with your participation in these things. And he refused to do that. And it was like 3 weeks or longer later before our piece came out. So he had weeks to do something and say something. And it's like, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, just sit on this and then watch you potentially suffer more. And the victims, you know, we were sitting on, you know, eventually when we got other interviews with other victims and non-victims, there were several people who were terrified of him, absolutely terrified, who came forward to speak, some anonymously, some not. And it's like, I'm not going to bury their stories. They came to me. It was very brave. And so I now have a responsibility. If this is the truth that we found, or here's evidence and you guys put the pieces together how you want to interpret it, we have to put it out. It would be wild for us not to. Something people don't know is it was within, I want to say, a day or two after the Johnny piece came out, I got a message from...
We've never spoken about this, by the way.
Yeah, no, I've never... I don't think I've ever talked about this. If I had, it was like in code, in passing, like one time. But I got a message from YouTube Legal. And let me tell you, you do not want to get a message from YouTube Legal. It was
YouTube Legal? I didn't know that was a thing.
You know, every company's got attorneys and legal reps and all those types of things. And obviously I'm not going to go verbatim of what was said, but essentially there were people who were trying to stop it from coming out before it did. And then there were entities trying to stop it after it came out.
Dear God. Well, fucking hell. We've literally never spoken about that.
Yeah.
The YouTube Legal thing is crazy. And the only thing it kind of reminds me of is when Taddy Westbrook did the video on James Charles. And I think like YouTube Legal or YouTube stepped in there as well. And we're like, you need to delete this video and you need to not be doing this. That's pisses me off so much. And also furthermore, to like say something that I've never said to you as well. There was someone that I know that was covering the story that was reached out to by a lawyer. And it was basically that this person should not be allowed to talk about this because they've met me once or twice. Like there was silencing going on in the media. And I'm going to give you names and everything when we're done. That this should not happen because, well, it's going to be bias.
Wow.
So, and that's in the legacy media world as well. So it's so fucked up to think that in legacy media and also within YouTube. And I think as well, what really kind of bothers me about that is, so I'm literally just like processing this for the first time. With YouTube as well, it's like, what is the aim in protecting it?
Sorry, let me clarify. Because I don't want to put it on YouTube. It wasn't on them. They were contacted by...
On behalf of someone.
On behalf of someone, right? So they have a responsibility if someone comes to them with a complaint,
Yes.
we'll refer to it as a complaint, they have to communicate, right? And so it wasn't YouTube.
Yeah, as a platform, it is their responsibility to clarify that. So
it wasn't them.
Yeah.
So they presented the complaint to me, and the complaint was completely false, completely off base. Basically, it had to do with there was a piece that we had in the Johnny video that had a public posting, and there were entities trying to say that was private, but it wasn't. It was public. It was quite literally uploaded to the very platform. And so what I had to do while people were, I couldn't even like pay attention to what was going on in the world that had watched the video, because I'm here dealing with YouTube legal and compiling evidence. I put on my little like faux attorney hat, even though I'm not an attorney. But I was like, okay, here we go. And I just compiled evidence, and I was like, exhibit A, exhibit B, I have all kinds of exhibits and links and highlights and explanations. And you know, I thankfully am not brand new to, you know, to reading contracts and knowing how to speak some legalese. And so I was just putting together all of these things of like, you know, all due respect to everyone, we're by the book. We were absolutely by the book with what we did. And we presented everything, and then they came back and they're like, yeah, you're right, you're by the book. Everything,
oh my God.
everything is by the book, and
it relies
we're rejecting their what they're trying to do.
It relies so heavily on people being misinformed about the fucking law. And we see this with cease and desist. And we see this with like that. Like cease and desist at its core is literally just to fucking scare someone. Oh my God. It frustrates me to my core that you were dealing with that. And it also frustrates me to my core. And obviously it's such a weird thing to say, but so many people, now you're another one that I know that we're dealing with a legal threat or legal ramification on like a story that is like on my behalf. Like it makes me feel so bad because I'm like, what the fuck? Like it's not even coming from me.
Yeah, no, it's not even you. And it's like, you know, like that incident that I had, and like it gave a greater learning for us for sure about like, I mean, we're by the book in what we were doing regardless. And like, that was just what we were doing. But it really also opened the door to understanding that there was like another element to the story that we were going to cover, that we had wanted to cover. It got interrupted for the John reasons. But we legally could not. That was made
it just clicked in my head what you're talking about.
We very legally could not. It took a while to figure this out and to understand this, but there are just laws in place that protect, you know, certain individuals who are not public figures. And so it was like we legally, like we now, our hands are completely tied, and like we have been, you know, explained and like learned all these things. And, you know, it's frustrating for sure. But the laws are the way they are for a reason. And, you know, I'm not here to try to.
And also if they're being used in a way, you can also use the law back to defend yourself or prove your point. So it kind of works both ways. I think in closing the Colleen doc section of this, something I will say 100 times and more is, again, reiterating that point that if you had not made it, I don't think I would be sitting here right now, because it would have went so many different ways. And I would like to say that I could have done a 2020 again in terms of, you know, like dealing with everyone. But last summer was so intense because there were more eyes than 2020. The fact you and your team, and I have emailed so many times and messaged back and forth and keep reiterating this, and even my mom will always reiterate this as well. It came at such a pivotal point where it was so make or break. This came up again because of fucking Cody Tyler. And no one, and again, you can have your opinions on me making content on this. You can have your opinions on me making tweets about this. You can even have opinions on Swoop making videos, on anyone involved making videos on this, right? But at its fucking core, none of us brought this up. And it was someone who brought this up because they were pissed off at Colleen or Corey, whatever it was, lit the match, Then they got exposed, quite like the Johnny thing, where they were on the record being like, I want a computer. You know, I'm going to do this so I can get a computer. It's lit the match.
Yeah.
And what people don't understand is it was everyone involved talks, and that goes to, you know, Becky and Oliver as well, who were also getting reached out to. You either talk or legacy media is going to talk for you.
Exactly.
And that is something that really bothered me. And I've never said this publicly, but you get it, which is the media will run with a story whether or not you want to be involved in it.
Right.
And all of us choosing to be involved in it was us allowing ourselves not to be fucking spoken for another fucking time.
Right.
And legacy media would have ran with the Johnny thing. Yeah. We were seeing many podcasts on YouTube cover the Johnny thing. And a lot of podcasts on YouTube that I've spoken about, you know, would interview Johnny in such a way of it was just content. And it really frustrated me to my core. And again, you don't have to say anything on this because I'm literally just ranting right now. So just like enjoy, I guess. It bothered me so much because people were ultimately running with who was going to be the loudest. And who was the loudest in that instance? It was Johnny. He was going on podcasts, you know, all these different ones, right? Not to name them, but there were a lot. And it had impact for the rest of us. And taking myself out of this, it also had impact for Becky and Oliver and Ella as well. You know, there were people involved that were, I get so heated still to this day about this. And we had a decision to make. We either talk and try to sort all this out ourselves, or we let it go. And it was getting to the stage, I've spoken with both of them privately, where it was like, damn, like specifically Johnny on H3, he's going to take the lead if he wants to. So circling back to my point, if it was not for you and your team, it would have gone that way. And I believe ultimately, like I said, it would have been this big expose where he would have tried to expose me in some way. And obviously I'm not going to deep dive fact check it. So I probably would have just let him and be like, whatever. Which obviously it would be exhausting. So you got a lot of backlash for making it. You got a lot of backlash from Colleen fans. You had to deal with legal shit. You had to deal with literally burning out you and your team, mental health, like breakdowns, hour-long calls, more hour-long calls, interviews and stuff like this. And then on top of that, the public pressuring you into it's not coming out on their timeline. The fucking fact that you did not give up on it has completely changed my life. It's the reason that I'm literally sitting here today. It's the reason that so many things in my life haven't gone so negatively, because people now believe me. And it would not have been the case if you had not done the work. And you didn't need to do the work. You could have given up on the work. I would have given up on the work. So seriously, and I will always say it in my videos as well, but like, and I've said it privately, but just so we have this here, fucking thank you so much, because it would have went a completely different way. And I don't want to put pressure on you, but I really needed someone to do that wasn't going to be me, that came from an unbiased standpoint. And seriously, thank you for not giving up on it, because it completely changed it genuinely changed my life. So thank you so much. And the work that you do with this one, with other things, dealing with other victims and dealing with just deep diving topics, the fucking impact it has, dude, is so crazy. And the ramifications it has for people's lives in them being able to move forward with stories, process stories, just fucking bravo, man. Bravo. Seriously, to you and your team. Bravo fucking oh.
Thank you. I'm
not expecting you to respond to that, by the way. Sorry, I was just taking a sip of water. But it really is. And so I guess if I like move on to a question then, what is, in your opinion, kind of looking at it from a more positive standpoint, the hard work that you do, what has been a thing? There's so many challenges and it's so fucking heavy. What do you think you and your team, specifically like you in yourself, can identify as like it keeps you going to make this style of like deep dive documentary exposing heavy topics? Like what would that be for you? Sorry, I just went on fucking like calm myself down here.
Yeah, no, I mean, hands down, without a question, it's my viewers and the stories that they share with me and the community that we've been able to build with talking about these stories. And I'm not gonna not say thank you for that because I can't not. It's weird and I appreciate those nice words, and I also think that you're here because of you, and you work your ass off, and you're very smart, and just you have a very long, bright road, and it's just exciting to see.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I tell these stories because it helps some people. Some people aren't interested in the stories, and that's fine. Like, you know, they'll watch something else. But I get an overwhelming, and that's not a negative word, an overwhelming amount of comments, DMs, emails, messages from people who open up about very horrible things that they've survived, whether it's abuse or whether it's chronic illness or just self-confidence, self-esteem issues, and or just not feeling seen or heard. And those messages, just, those are the things that keep me going. Even if people want to, some few people here and there want to, you know, complain or have a problem. For me to not tell these stories feels like it would be a massive injustice to the people who are saying that they feel heard, they feel seen with the content, and they're learning something. I get so many messages from people saying, I didn't know that, you know, there was a story we covered where, very tragic story, where someone, doesn't need to get into who, but someone had been strangled by their partner. And so I go into, kind of extensive research about that being one of the number one signs that they are likely to take your life. And so we share learnings for people. And then I get comments or messages, and they're like, my partner did this to me. I had no idea that it was as dangerous as it could be. I'm getting out. And how could I not continue to share these stories if it's helping people? And it's not going to help everyone because the content's not for everyone, but for the people that it speaks to, I can't not try to help in some way. I keep thinking also, if I had just had one person in my life when I was a young teen being sexually abused and being told my family will disown me and to keep it private and to not share anything. If I had seen content or had one person in my life saying, hey, here's why that's wrong. Here's why you don't deserve that. You're valid in however you're feeling. Even if you don't know how you're feeling, you're still worthy. You still deserve to have a better experience in life. I wish I had that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like there's a certain degree of this content that is me, you know, in a way, as, you know, people will say, it's almost healing that child version of me that never had a chance.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I think about if someone's, I don't know, why does she talk about pieces about her experience? It's always like, why wouldn't I? I've come to a place now where I understand, oh, I shouldn't be here. And I survived. Yeah. Like, I survived some shit. And it's okay, finally, now that I'm processing it more, it's okay to be proud of myself a little bit, if that makes sense. And not think that that's being arrogant, to be like, hey, I lived through some shit. And so I'm going to talk about it, and it's helping people. And I'm going to keep doing it as long as it's helping somebody.
And speaking of being proud, if you looked back on all of the short films, all the docs, what is like the standout two that you're like really proud of?
I would say Lost in Darkness, just because it was the first true expression of like, I have nowhere else to go but to just share what's going on. I was in such a broken place. So that one's always going to hold like a very special moment for me. And it awakened me in a way and encouraged me as a filmmaker. And that changed a lot of my life. And I mean, Unspoken is very much on that as well. Unspoken or Worthy, you know, they mean different things for different reasons. But worthy, I guess, because that was where I really took it upon myself to share about just social injustices, which is very, close to my heart to talk about as well. So those would be the two pieces.
Again, I think the muckers would kill me if I didn't ask this. Overwhelming comment was music. A lot of people were commenting on music, and they were just wondering what your relationship, first of all, give a little bit of background on it, but then people were wondering what your relationship is like with it now. And people were saying, is it still like a passion project you want to go back to? Because the muckers want it. So please give me a little backlash.
Well, thank
backlash.
you.
Please give me a little backlog. Please give me backlash.
Backlash. Maybe a little backlash on the music industry. But I mean, can I speak to Karen?
Yes.
Thank you to the muckers. That's very sweet of all of you for asking. And so that's the thing that like some people know, some people don't. Like being a musician was what I was before any of this. And, I was, it's like one of those cheesy stories. Like when I was, really like a kid, I was writing poetry, right? And it's just like this like weird thing, not weird, but like, I'm writing poetry while people are doing whatever else they're doing. And then that evolved into songwriting. And so along with songwriting, I was like, well, I want to be able to like record stuff. How do I do that? And, I got like, this program called GarageBand, and I would like sequence my own beats and stuff and try to figure this out. And then
you in the studio,
right. I mean, I was terrible, right? I was just awful. But also it was a way to express myself. And then I would just, want to perform. Like at the end of the day, I am most myself when I'm on stage performing more than anything that I do. I just haven't done it in a while. But I was just programming music. I learned how to play bass. I learned how to play drums. My mom had actually taught me drums when I was like tiny kid.
I'm so jealous of people that know how to play an instrument.
I mean, don't expect.
Put an instrument in front of both of us and you'll see a difference in skill here.
I'm not trying to say that I don't sing like Beyonce. Like I'm not, I have my own vibe and my own thing. But like my mom taught me drums, and, she was sang a cappella when she was young. And so music was always a part of my life, and listening to like old records, that my parents would play was always a part of my life. And I would
What kind of music did they grow up on?
Oh man, like so many different things from like, it would be like Sam Cooke, or it would be Jackie Wilson, or James Brown, or Prince.
Yes, I love this top, by the way.
Yes, Prince is my religion, and obsessed with Prince. And but just Karen Carpenter, like all these different influences that my parents had became my influences, and so that and then I kind of like got into like metal. I was like a big metal head for a period, and like listening to more obscure bands that like no one's ever heard of. And it was just, I don't know, it was just a way to express different emotions, and it was so fun. And so that was what I wanted to do. That was what I was, really passionate about. That's what I was pursuing, and I come to the entertainment industry, and I'm like, okay, we're doing this music thing, do a little like modeling on the side. I put quotes because like, who am I? But
Diva was booked and busy.
We all have our little moments. And there were, the music industry is incredible, and the most toxic, disgusting industry that there is. And I think a lot of artists would say the same thing. It is brutal. It is ruthless. It is cutthroat in ways that people do not understand. Like I couldn't put to words like how awful it is, but also it's great, right? It can make beautiful opportunities, and men can make dreams happen. And there was a phase, there was a period, when people are like, where's the music? It's like, it got tied up in labels and illegal, and that kind of stuff happens all the time, unfortunately, with artists for a myriad of reasons. And it's really frustrating. You know, you work on this project, you have all of these hopes for the project, and then they already have an artist that they had already signed and were already promoting. And they're like, well, this song reminds us of this. We don't want to compete with that. So shelf.
Yeah.
And you're like, now what do I do? You know? And so there were those experiences for sure. There's a lot of predatory behavior, as we can all imagine. We're seeing what's going on with Diddy and everything. And so I haven't talked like a lot about that. There's just like, you know, some traumatic stuff there. And so eventually I was just, as I'm finding my way and like getting tied up in this label. And another thing about, you know, my early experiences in music was the amount of people who were speaking for me all the time. And, you know, I'm just like kind of bright-eyed and I'm like, whatever you say, whatever, you're the expert. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. So I feel like I would wake up one day and there would be like 7 different biographies written about me from like management or agent or, you know, even promos from like a venue or something or the label or whatever. And it's like, I'm not that person. Yeah. I'm not from there. Who is this? Yeah. What is that experience? I didn't do this. And it's like, I don't know who any of this is. And you have me listed 15 different ways, you know, this month alone. And there was a certain degree of that like, I understand you have to like play the game to a certain degree, but then
it was very frustrating.
Yeah, it was really frustrating, but it took me a long time to grow into my own, to realize like, okay, I don't like that. I would like to have a little bit more say in who I am as an artist. And so that was when I was like, you know what, I'm going to do a tour and I'm going to just come at it on my own and build everything from the ground up. And it was the single most intense experience ever. Sorry, I'm like going, I could talk forever,
I love
I could talk not at all.
I love it.
About this stuff. But yeah, like I did this overseas tour. It was 75 shows.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was, when I say intense, it was intense. It was 75 shows. I think it was done in like maybe 85 days or something like that. We only had a couple of days off, and like those days would normally be like you're flying like a long distance, or we had a really long drive or something. And it was just me and 2 of my choreographer and another dancer. And I spent months building this whole live video interactive installation that runs like in the background with my show. Yeah. And it's like, you know, there's graphics going on that I'm like manipulating on stage. And it was like all of these things that like, you know, at that time weren't really done by independent artists very much. And I was told to like not do that. It's too much work. But that was me expressing myself in film format as well as the music stuff. And there were so many technical problems along the tour. I got like, I don't know, at least 3 massive chest infections because they like smoke everywhere all the time, and we're, you know, having to do these sets, and like I'm very allergic to cigarettes. So it was just, I was sick all of the time. I got mugged in it. My passport was stolen.
Damn, man, they put you through it.
It was intense. There was like an emergency run to the, like across the country to get a new passport so I could leave the country. It was all of this chaos the whole time. And also it was the most incredible thing.
Where were the shows?
This was all across China. And then some through Hong Kong was like that was what the tour was supposed to be. And then there's like, they're moving you around and there's cancellations and you're being flipped and flopped everywhere. So like when my passport was stolen, they take a lot of vacations over there, like long vacations. Okay. And so like they were taking a week-long vacation. So the government was going to be, the embassies and stuff were going to be shut down. And it was this whole excursion because it was like a week left of tour. I had to get home. There was something going on medically with my family. And if I didn't get to the embassy to get my passport renewed, I was going to be stuck there for like a week of not being able to do anything. And then like more weeks. And it was a very sensitive time. I still remember like took a taxi 7 hours. It was just me, my choreographer, and this random taxi driver.
You all locked in for 7 hours.
Yeah. No, we also had my interpreter there, and it was just, we're getting to this embassy, and like I remember they're about to close the doors, and I'm screaming, like running across like the courtyard, I'm an American citizen, let me in. Like it was so over dramatic.
They go, here come the Americans.
Yeah, no, they're like, oh gosh, not another. Exactly, right. Way to represent. Yeah, no, that was a wild situation, but thankfully got it just in time. Was able to get home. But you know, long story, still long. When I came back after that tour, I lost someone in my family very shortly after. And it was just a really difficult time and processing a lot. And I don't know, there was something in me that just needed a different outlet for a while. And that was when I started just embracing more of the film side. Yeah. And so that was kind of how that sort of took over. And I was like, let me just, for once, not try to, you know, regain control of everything. Yeah. I feel like my life has been that, just trying to get my voice. And I was like, let me just see where this takes me. But that being said, I have been back in the studio.
This is what we talked about when you were at the house. And I was like, just seeing people be passionate and excited about things makes me so happy. So take the floor.
Yeah, no, I didn't. I mentioned like a little bit of music stuff in one of my docs like a couple of months ago. And I posted some tour footage in it, and I hadn't really done that. Yeah. And it's like, you know, like the shows were like, they weren't nothing. Okay. Yeah. Like I was being lowered from the ceiling. There was pyrotechnics. Like you know, I like to put on a show when I have the resources. Yeah. It's a little hard when you're an independent artist. But so I played some of those clips, and like, I wasn't even expecting people to like notice. I just thought they'd comment on the topic of the video, and
they wouldn't notice you coming down from the fucking ceiling and all this smoke and shit. Yeah, they wouldn't notice.
I think I don't want to place like expectations, right? So I was just like, I'm just gonna like share a little bit for me because I haven't in a very long time, and so people were like, "Excuse me, what is this? Tell me more." And I was like, "Really? Okay." And so yeah, I'm at the place now where I've done so much of the doc work, and I've literally had music videos just sitting on my drives that I've never released. This pissed me off when you told me. This pissed me off when you told me. I know. I'm so weird.
What do you mean they're ready to go?
Remember when I said I don't rush?
Okay, but I'm going to make you rush on this one.
I know. No, it's bad. Like there are people who are constantly like, what are you doing? Even, you know, I've had like dear friends who like were just like working on the shoots, you know, with me, and the videos are beautiful, and I just didn't put them out. And I was like, what would happen if I just put them out? What would happen? You know,
this is what I'm saying.
I know. So that's the plan. I don't have the exact timeline yet. I am recording some new music stuff and some stuff that's been sitting in my drafts for a minute, and some new things because I have evolved as a human. And so, yeah.
I can't wait.
Music's coming.
I can't wait from the vault.
Yes,
from the vault. Version.
Yeah.
Wait, so I think my final question to you then will be, so when you kind of look to the future, and I hate this question, that's why I'm never like, what are you going to be doing in 5 years? So it's not that. Yeah. But in terms of when you think about like music and touring and stuff like that, where do you see yourself wanting to go with it in the future?
Yeah. Well, the irony being I have been in discussions in regards to touring, but it's a ways out, right? But I very much now am at a place where I want to embrace both. Okay. And, you know, I do want to be on tour again. That's where I feel most alive. And I want the tour to encompass just who I am as an artist, which is music. So we have performance, we have the songs. Hopefully you like them. I hope so. Let's have a good time. Let's dance. Yeah. And also the conversational element, the doc work that I do. Let's also like talk. Yeah. Let's just come out on stage and like have conversations and talk about things that matter. Yeah. And why not have hybrid of that type of show? And
there's people there that want it as well.
Yeah.
Whether you want to admit it or not.
No, I do. I very much do. I just was very much like, oh, I get in my head all the time. That's my worst problem, is I'm in my head all the time, and I just convince myself nobody wants this. Nobody wants this.
Bullshit.
But that's, I know it's stupid. It's stupid. And so I will get out of my head and finally do this. And I think it'll be a good experience. It'll be wild.
And I'll be there barrier.
Okay.
And I'll be there barrier.
Okay.
Well, my full thing to you now is open that damn vault. No.
Okay.
It makes me really excited to see like what is going to come because you're so excited about it. And I think that just shows, and passionate about it as well. And the fact that like the audience are already really excited for it, but they don't know what to expect because you've been sitting on this as well, I think is like a perfect like concoction. Right. Here's my thing. I'm going to say thank you so much for coming on. But if I can ask you to look at this camera, tell everyone where to find you, what you're promoting, what you're up to, go for it.
Well, I'm Swoop. You can find me on YouTube at Swoop, and my second channel, Swoop 2. We do deep dives on the main channel and lighter dives. I have a little bit more fun. It's a little more unhinged on Swoop 2. I'm on Instagram at Spanky Valentine, Twitter at Spanky V, and you can look forward to some new music, finally, music videos, and a documentary that's been in the works for a while, and a short film.
Damn, you working.
Trying.
I'm not. I'm not.
Come on.
Well, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for coming on. And it has felt so good to be the one interviewing you.
Yes!
All right, muckers, I'm going to love and leave you. Everything will be linked down below. Again, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And I will see you all very soon, and goodbye.